Welcome to the third hour of American Agenda. I'm Bob Sellers.
And I'm Heather Childers, and we are now joined by our family of co-hosts, co-chair of Project 21 and host of Stacy on the Right, Stacy Washington, executive director of USA Strong, Erin Elmore, and conservative student activist and conservative fellow, Nate Hochman.
I mean, obviously not all of them, but there were quite a few of them that were wearing Biden T-shirts. Now, obviously that's done so people can take a picture and send it, but they really were wearing them. So that there really was a change down at the border.
This is the only time I think in the United States of America you see anyone wearing Biden gear ever. But the bigger problem is what are the American mothers of children saying that have had their children at home, homeschooling for well over a year, yet some of these migrant children are getting an in-person education? What say we as Americans when they say we're not allowed to go out in public, to the gyms, to the restaurants, because we are at risk for spreading COVID, yet they are putting these migrants on buses, on airplanes without any COVID tests? The problem is this is a massive double standard that doesn't apply. Why are we taxpayers being tortured and making our businesses go away and not having livelihoods and incomes, yet these people are just allowed to travel freely throughout the United States? Yet we, as hardworking Americans who fight our wars and pay our taxes, are picking up the tab for these people who are coming to our country. And it's not to say that we don't want people to come to this country. We want it to be done legally. And by the way, on the 20th of April, it's going to be 400 days to slow the spread. That's sad.
Yeah, good point, which is another topic we could go into. But Heather, also, we heard stories from Congresswoman Kamek also about how children are kind of being used as tickets into the country. Conversation with our panel coming up. Reports on the January 6th Capitol riots are revealed that key officials overlooked the threats. We'll have more of American Agenda after this.
Million Americans regularly go to Newsmax.
Officers left the force unprepared. Officers were armed with riot shields that shattered on impact and even had expired weapons with inadequate training, missing key intelligence about the crowds time around if anything were to happen, given this report that shows their lack of being prepared when the Capitol riots broke out on January 6th.
Right. I think preparedness is key, but I do believe in the Chauvin trial that they haven't even started jury deliberations yet. Right. So that will begin on Monday. I highly doubt that that will wrap up because these issues are so complex and there are a multitude of charges. I sincerely doubt that this is something that's going to be signed, sealed, and delivered by Monday. Oftentimes, juries have questions. They have concerns about some of the charges, understanding some of the legal terminology. So these situations, and this is a very dire, grave situation with a ton of expert witnesses, a ton of different information that they were consuming during the trial. This is not going to be snap decision making at all. So for DC to be ready is always a good thing, but also having traveled around to many of the major cities around this country quite prolifically, I've been to DC, New York, Philadelphia, Boston in the last couple of months. DC is by far the most desolate, the most empty, the most locked down, the most austere. So it's really sad to see what's going on there, but preparedness is key.
Yeah, Nate, what did this report say to you? Did it leave you with a lot more questions, especially when it comes to some things that aren't included in it, including the FBI still searching for whomever placed bombs outside of the DNC and the RNC headquarters?
Well, look, there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered, but to the points that have already been made, and what's going on in D.C. right now is an illustration of this. While what happened during January 6th was obviously shameful and the people who broke the law should be prosecuted, it is incredibly difficult to take seriously the same people who have been actively justifying, if not just overlooking, the riots that happened all summer and, are overlooking really destructive riots that are happening in Minneapolis right now.
Where they're on fire. And essentially, D.C. is telling us right now, oh, by the way, whenever this jury comes out, D.C. is going to be on fire also. And Erin, I agree with you. I take the train in and out of D.C. all the time. It feels like a damaged town. It doesn't feel normal. So we can talk more coming up, folks.
Yeah, it ranked coming since day one. that he imposed against Russia today, 35 individuals and entities due to what they say was election interference and also hacking. Here are the things that stood out to me in this report that came out about the sanctions that were being imposed about Russia. U.S. intel also having low to moderate confidence that Russia offered bounties on American troops to the Taliban in Afghanistan. So that's a switch from a headline that we saw during the Trump administration.
Well, all the headlines have seemed to switch from what we had seen during the Trump administration. And right now, I think that China and Russia do not see President Biden as a true adversary. They see him as someone who is beneath them. And, you know, to extrapolate on Stacey's point, wow, we have 19 genders and as many pronouns as you can manage, but do we have border security? No. Do we have international relations that are protecting us as Americans? Absolutely not. I've extensively studied China, by the way, and there's a great book called The 100-Year Marathon by Michael Pillsbury, who was in Washington forever. China is not our friend. It is their goal to take over as a world superpower. This is very well laid out. They're not going to do it with bombs and guns. They are going to do it with infiltration and deceit. And we are so close to that being a reality. They've already surpassed us economically. They really did bring the coronavirus here, whether you like to believe that or not. Yet no one in our current Democrat administration is willing to believe that. We sit here and make excuses for China. But no, we need to take them on because they are not our friend. They are not a developing nation. They are a threat to democracy. They want to see us fail. They want to be the world superpower, and they are communist. Communism doesn't work.
So, Bob, what about that? How do we take on China in the best way possible? And what should we do about Russia and what they're doing right now?
They are hard questions to answer, but I think a lot of it has to do with economic sanctions. But at a certain point, it's also going to have to do with military power. First, possibly to drop some games. One league in Pennsylvania finding themselves disappointed after tournament officials require players 12 years and older must receive the COVID vaccine. Risk tolerance. I mean, there's risk in life. There's risk. Hey, when you play baseball, I got news for you. You can get hit in the head by the ball, okay?
Yeah, and as a mother, I find this to be completely morally reprehensible. Why does the Little League Association, if they're even called that, have the right to tell me how to parent my child and what vaccines I should give my child?
Right.
There better be medical exemptions and there better be religious exemptions built into this. I bet you in places like Florida with Governor DeSantis, who is a strong Republican, these won't be allowed. But in Pennsylvania, that's where the Little League World Series, I believe, takes place.
Yeah.
So that's probably why it's coming out of Pennsylvania. But this is particularly troubling. This has not been a vaccine that's been around forever. And now we've seen that some countries are taking, I believe, the AstraZeneca vaccine off the shelves. And in the United States of America, we've had major problems with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Yeah. Why then are we pushing this on our children?
So now the children have to get it, Heather.
Right. Well, and I'm just wondering where this is happening because as you and I were just discussing, New York has just now opened up the vaccine eligibility to everyone 16 and above.
The House Judiciary Committee voting 25-17, creating a reparation proposal draft to fix what they call a racial wealth gap and detailing how they say the nation's economic advancement was once derived from the work of slaves. What's your take, the reparations and anything else you want to talk about?
Well, this is a slippery slope, legally speaking. So first of all, when slaves came to the United States of America, they were purchased from Africans who were potentially African and, well, black. They would be black, right? Second of all, Jewish people were slaves in Egypt. So Jews should probably get some sort of reparations here in the United States. And there are slaves all over the world. What about the Uyghurs currently in China? So slavery is not a uniquely American experience. Slavery is something that's gone all over the world. Listen, it's wrong anywhere and everywhere. But reparations now, AKA free money for people that are generationally removed from this, is not the way to solve any problem. All it's doing is making these Democrat politicians feel that they are virtue signaling and doing something in air quotes good for the African American population, which should honestly be seen as pandering and really, really sad.
Yeah. Your take on this, Heather?
I think that we could go back to the conversation we were having earlier about packing the court. I think packing the court, D.C. statehood, reparations, infrastructure, all of these are attempts by the Democrats to throw things out there, see whatever sticks, see whatever has the best in terms of polling numbers, to then do away with the filibuster. Use this as an excuse to do away with the filibuster.
Moore and Nate Hochman, thank you so much for being with us. We're going to have more of American Agenda after this.